The sound of the door closing behind me felt final, almost suffocating. I stood there, breathless, staring at the house I had once called home. The house was silent, save for the distant meowing of the cats I had grown allergic to. The cats? I could no longer ignore the ache in my chest when I thought about them. For months, I had suffered through this house, forced to live with my husband and his mother, all the while battling allergies I could not control. I had no choice but to live with them, but I knew something was off, something I had to uncover. My tears, which had always been masked as allergies, seemed to finally break free as I walked away from the door. I hurried back to my parents' house, desperate for comfort, for relief. As soon as I saw my child's face, something shifted in me. The weight of everything hit me hard. My brother noticed my distress immediately. "What happened?" he asked, his face filled with concern. I wiped my eyes, trying to compose myself, and explained everything: the forced cohabitation, the changes in the house, and the unbearable tension I had been living with. Even without the cats, the atmosphere was stifling. My brother tilted his head, trying to make sense of it all. "That's strange," he said quietly. "It doesn't seem like it was just about the cats. Maybe there's something more going on here." He was right. I had suspected as much for a while. Something wasn't adding up, and I was determined to find out what. That night, after a long silence between us, my brother and I made a plan. The next day, I put on my apron and a mask to protect myself from the allergens, and I went back to the house. I was determined to clean, to make everything look perfect, just as my mother-in-law demanded. She had always criticized me for not keeping the house spotless, as though that was my sole purpose in life. I couldn't bear the thought of it, but it had to be done. I couldn't show weakness, not in front of her. When I arrived, I found the house in disarray. The floors hadn't been cleaned, and there was pet hair everywhere. Clothes were strewn about, and trash had piled up in every room. It was as if they had made no effort to maintain any semblance of order. Without hesitation, I began cleaning each room. I wiped down the counters, vacuumed the floors, and scrubbed the bathrooms. My mother-in-law watched from the doorway, a smirk on her face as if she'd won some victory. "Finally," she said, satisfied. "Looks like you understand your duties as a wife. Now bring the child over, I'll be waiting." I nodded without saying a word, not letting her see the anger bubbling inside me. "I'll bring them once I finish cleaning," I promised, though I knew it wasn't true. "How long will it take?" she pressed, growing impatient. "By tomorrow," I said, trying to appease her. She was insistent, though. "That's too late. Hurry up." The way she spoke to me, as though I were a servant, made my blood boil, but I didn't show it. Instead, I smiled through gritted teeth. "Of course," I said, before heading to the next room. As I continued cleaning, I could hear her murmuring to herself. She didn't care about the state of the house, or my well-being. She only cared about her plans. I knew something was wrong. They had been so insistent on me coming back, on me cleaning, on me following their orders. But why? What were they really planning? I returned to my parents' house later that evening, exhausted but more determined than ever. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. Something was going on. As soon as I walked in, I went straight to my child, who was in my mother's arms. It was then that my brother looked up at me and said, "I think it's time we had a little look behind the curtain." He pulled out his phone and showed me a video, footage from the small camera I had set up earlier that day while I was cleaning. My heart sank as I watched the footage unfold. There on screen was my husband and my mother-in-law, talking openly about their plans. "Once the house is clean," they said, "we'll finally get her to leave. We'll pressure her until she folds." I couldn't believe it. I had suspected their intentions, but hearing it out loud made everything real. They had planned this. The forced cohabitation, the criticism, the emotional manipulation. It was all part of a larger scheme to take control of my life, my home, and my child. They wanted to drive me out so that my husband could be with his ex-girlfriend and live happily ever after. I sat down, feeling the weight of the revelation hit me. My brother, however, was calm, even a little impressed by the quality of the hidden camera. "So, what now?" he asked, his voice steady. I didn't hesitate. "Now we confront them. They've underestimated me for far too long." The next day, I returned to the house, this time with my brother by my side. As we walked through the front door, my husband and his mother looked up in shock. "Did you come back to continue cleaning?" my husband asked, trying to hide the panic in his voice. "Actually," I said, my voice firm, "I've come back to dispose of a big piece of trash." My brother, ever the calm one, stepped forward. "You both need to leave," he said coolly. "You've been recorded. Everything you've said, everything you planned is on camera." They froze. "What? How?" my husband stammered, his face paling. "Don't worry about it," my brother replied. "We've got the footage. It's all there." I watched as their faces shifted from disbelief to panic. My husband's expression twisted with anger and frustration. "You've invaded our privacy," he shouted, trying to deflect. "That's illegal." I remained unfazed. "I installed the camera for your mother's sake," I said coldly. "To make sure her precious pets were well taken care of while you were gone. But what I overheard was... well, let's just say I didn't expect to hear what I did." My husband was struggling to come up with an explanation. I didn't mean for it to happen this way," he stammered. "I didn't want things to get out of hand." "You didn't want things to get out of hand?" I echoed, disgust clear in my voice. "While I was risking my health and our child's future, you were conspiring with your ex-girlfriend and your mother to get rid of me and take over our home." They tried to justify it, but their words were empty, hollow. I could see the truth now. They had never cared about me, or my health, or my child. It was all a game to them. They had played me for a fool. But I wasn't a fool anymore. Then, to add insult to injury, my mother-in-law tried to justify her actions. "It's not my fault," she exclaimed. "I only came over to make dinner, and there she was, nagging about the house and the child. You were the one who suggested we live together, remember? It wasn't me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you trying to blame me for this? You and your son are the ones who've been plotting. You're the ones who've been lying, manipulating, and using me." I didn't wait for a response. The truth was clear now. I had nothing left to say to them. I turned to my husband, my heart cold. "You wanted a divorce, didn't you? Well, now you have it." And with that, the divorce was set in motion. The property division, child support, everything was settled. I had no intention of giving him access to my child. He had proven that he was unfit to be a father. As for my mother-in-law, she tried to fight back, threatening lawsuits and more manipulation. But my brother, with his quiet confidence, took care of that. "You'll lose this case," he said calmly, showing her his business card. "I'm an attorney. I suggest you drop it before you make things worse." In the end, I sold the house, the one my husband had wanted so badly, the one I had built with love and care. It was time to move on. I had been betrayed, but I would not let it define me. I would not let them win. As time passed, I found peace. I focused on raising my child and rebuilding my life. And just when I least expected it, I met someone, a man who truly understood me. He was kind, patient, and thoughtful. It took time for us to grow close, but we built a relationship on trust and understanding. And after years of getting to know him, we decided to marry. My brother was happy for me. He had always been my rock, my protector. He was there for every step of the way, ensuring I made the right choices, especially when it came to my child. Together, we moved forward. Together, we built a future filled with happiness. And with the lessons I had learned, I knew that nothing, no betrayal, no hurt, could ever stop me from finding peace again.